Hello, my name is Rob Garner. I'm a software development instructor, and today I'm going to demonstrate how to add a SQLite database to a .NET MAUI app. So the objective here is to add a SQLite database to our app, and we want to have a database file that is created automatically. So our app can be deployed in many different environments, a PC app, an Android app, even a Mac. And we can't always guarantee that we can bring the database file with us with our starting structure. So it's actually better with .NET MAUI to have the app create the database itself and just basically look to see if the database exists in the environment is deployed to. If it doesn't, then it creates it. So the tables will be created on startup. We'll put in some sample data. We may deploy it with that, we may not. And then we'll display the data in the UI. So the classes we're going to be creating, or some of the classes we're going to be creating today are the following. We're going to create an app settings class that stores settings that are needed throughout the application. In other applications, this is often done with a file, but in MAUI, it's kind of easier just to make a class to do that. And then we're going to make a database service class that will build a connection string, and it'll look. This is what we'll look to see if the database exists. If it doesn't, it will actually initialize it, create the whole table structure with a SQL code. And then the school repository class, basically that represents one table in the database, and it's going to give us our create, retrieve, update, and delete methods so that we can put all that database code in this repo class and not have to have it scattered throughout the application. So I'm starting off with the application kind of in its default template. Got our click me, and so we have a starting app. So we need to add SQLite support. You can do this by going to managing your NuGet packages, and we need to add SQLite. So we'll search for SQLite in our under browse, and we'll install the latest version of that. And you can do it that way. The other way you can do this, by the way, is you can right click and open in terminal. This will open up a PowerShell terminal, and you can also do this, but just by typing in to the terminal, it's telling me that it's already there. But that's another way of installing with PowerShell. When we go in here, it's telling us there's two updates. I'm going to go ahead and click on those and update those. So I kind of think actually it's almost better to go to the NuGet package manager, because then it makes you look at any updates that are there. We're going to then add a settings class. So I was trying to do it with an app settings file. It turns out with MAUI, it's just easier to use a settings class. So, but app settings.cs. And part of this is because MAUI can be deployed to a phone or a PC app, it's just easier to do this in a class. It's going to be a file anyway. We're just going to use a C# file, and that's where our database is going to live. And we're going to also add a another class called database service. We'll add that. And what this one's going to do is this database service is here to just manage our database. It's going to have a connection string. In the constructor to this, we're going to go to the file system and combine, and from our app settings class, this is a static class, which means that to get access to this member of the class, I kind of want this to be a property. Let's say it doesn't not like that. That's why it doesn't like that. Can't declare instance members in the static class. Okay, I'll do it this way then. So our app settings class will have a public string named SchoolDB and or database file name. And that comes out here We combine that with the app data directory, which is different depending on whether you're on Android or PC or depending on deployment. So this is one of the things that makes it a little different with MAUI than other applications is we kind of have to do things a little to address the fact that we're going to be dealing with more than just PC apps. So this will dynamically create the path at runtime, and then the connection string is data source is equal to the path, and then we will initialize the database. And this so this is initialization code, and what it does is it opens it and then declares this string and that has the code for our. I think we can do this. Okay, that has our code for our database for initializing our database, and it will create our tables. So campus, course, and major get created. And then what we do is we are going to seed our data. Well, first, so the way a SQL command works is this. We instantiate a SQLite connection. Then we open the connection. This string is actually the SQL code to create our tables. And then we instantiate a SQLite command, passing in the string and the connection. And then we execute that. If we're going to execute that non-query. Now, what execute non-query does is that since there's nothing returning from this query, we can say execute non-query. It just means, hey, just do this command. I don't expect anything to come back from it. Then we have a method for seeding the database. So we initialize the database, and then we can seed our data. And then this is going to insert some campuses. And let's see. So it inserts main campus. And then let's see, I think this is a different command. So we'll split that out. There, that makes it easier to see what's going on. And then we're adding programming, and then we're adding computer science into major, and then programming into a course. And that's just to get some sample data into there. We could actually add more if we wanted to. And then here, again, we're going to create a SQLite command with this SQL string and this connection. So that database service will create the database if it doesn't already exist. Then we're going to add another class, and we're going to call this one school repo, school repository. The repository pattern is a database pattern which separates the code for working with the database away from the other code. So it's basically whenever we're talking directly to the database, we're going to use this repo rather than putting the code directly in our other applications. So normally what I do is I put the code directly into the application, and then we split it out here. But it just turns out, we're just going to jump ahead because it just makes it easier to use the standard pattern. And so we have get methods for campuses, courses, and majors. And we have this get list method that you pass in a select statement, and then it's going to create a SQLite connection, open that connection, just like we did. And if you think about that, this is very kind of similar to working with a file. You have to open a file to work with it. You have to open the database to work with it. We have a list of strings which are created initially, and then we take this SQL command string that's going to be passed in, and we are going to use a reader. Now, the way the reader works is before we did execute command non-query, execute reader returns a reader object. And then we can use that. The reader object has a read method. And reader has multiple different get methods. You can get a float, you can GUID, get different types of ints, get a byte. And so the reader, we're going to use the get string because if we look at our initial data, we're putting in just some string names into the table. And you can see it's got an ID field and then a name field, which is text. Then our reader is going to, we're going to get, we're going to use get string. And that int is where that's located. So since we are saying select name from course, the integer is going to be basically, if we got star from database, we would get an ID and a name, and the name would be at integer 1. But because we're just getting the title or the name here, it'll be integer 0, meaning take the first 0th element that comes back and bring it back as a string. And then we're going to our list of strings and just adding it, and that's how we're getting our list of objects. Now we're going to repurpose main page, and let's replace this vertical stack layout. And this vertical stack layout is going to display a picker, which is going to show you what majors you can get, what courses you can get, what campuses you can get. So, and then we will need to adjust. We'll get rid of all of this. Don't need that either. And got the names here. Let's build this just to see if it gets these resolved. Yep. And so what this does is it goes to each of these pickers, which are going to be drop downs, basically, and sets the item source to our repos. Our repo is going to call get major. And then that's going to go to get list. It's going to go to the database, get all the majors, return them. And then that's going to become the item, that list that comes out of that becomes the item source for our picker. I don't know why this is in here. And let's run that. And now we can see if we hit these drop downs, we have from our code that was initialized, we have the options and then campus. And so now we have a working connection to our database. So I'm going to make some blog posts on this, and I'm going to put that on the web, and I'm going to continue working with this and make a series for this piece. I'll probably go back and rebuild a MAUI series out of this, because I was expecting that I could just go through and use the existing documentation that's out there to integrate MAUI into this course. But what I'm finding is that there's not a lot of good tutorials out there. So I'll just make them and make them available. Thank you very much.